All right, we're back here on the bonus round from PAX in Seattle in the LTD Gallery with Peter, Greg, and Nathan. And now we are going to Twitter for some of your questions that you sent us on Twitter at GameTrailers and me at Jeff Keighley. All three of these guys are on Twitter as well, so make sure to follow them. First question goes to you, Peter. It says, Peter, you said you probably couldn't get away with Syndicate today, but if you could, would you have tried?
Well, this is I did this keynote,
Yes.
and I said that as we did in Syndicate, you could and it seems ridiculous now, you could minigun babies and prams, which quite clearly isn't politically correct in today's world.
Yes.
Oh, I don't know if I'd want to minigun babies and prams. But back in those days, you could do anything in the games industry. I did draw the line at minigunning puppies. But,
That was not allowed?
Okay. I still loved Syndicate as a game, and it was that minigun sound effect still rings in my ears, or that may be tinnitus. I don't know. It's one of those two things. Yeah.
All right, so you would get away with it. You try again today.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure it would be, exactly. I'd say,
would have been
it
Syndicate
be
Wars,
Syndicate
right?
now with puppies, and I'm not sure that strap line would work. But it was giving you the freedom to be kind of, violent if you wanted to be in this open city without judging you too much.
Right. And in this day and age with the fidelity and everything, you think it wouldn't quite work?
It wouldn't. It would. We're so much more politically sensitive nowadays.
Right.
And
Hotline Miami wasn't that? So.
Yeah, well, there you go. Yeah.
All right, next one. This one's for you, Greg. Question from at Matt P. Douglas. Since you guys have been dragging your feet on that Kickstarter game, will backers see any added perks?
It's funny that people say that. I think that the interesting thing we've seen is, we had to announce the game before we'd even started pre-production or had an idea. So usually this process isn't happening until the game is playable or at alpha or you have something to show. So I think it just feels like it's been a long time. But by the time we ship it, it's not going to be any longer of a development time than any other games we're working on. It's just now we're talking about it as it's happening. Yeah. And I think that's been the cool part of the project. When I was young, I knew I liked games and I would have loved to make them, but I had no idea what that meant. So being able to kind of demystify that a bit and show people the process and let them see what it's like to go through, struggles and overcome them.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, it's been cool, and I feel like people who are watching the documentary are learning a lot about why it's been taking so long and what we've been doing, and I think they've seen that the game is growing and building and getting better and better, and it's going to come out and it's going to be awesome.
I don't know how long it's taken, but.
Let's see, it's been, we launched the Kickstarter in March of 2012. So about a year and a half so far.
I mean, that's just nothing.
Yeah, it'll be about 2 years when it's out. I mean, Psychonauts was 5 years, Brutal Legend was 5 years. So it's a lot shorter than that. Yeah.
But this is the problem we've got. When you get, especially with something like Kickstarter, you get people really excited before you've really even started.
Yeah.
And then, it's like Christmas. You want Christmas to come. You don't want to, say it's 6 months away. So
yeah, and people haven't seen that process a lot, so I don't think they understand what goes into it. So I guess they're learning.
Well, sometimes, even in the game industry, there are often times where games aren't even announced until they're, 6 months until release. So it's like it may have been delayed 3 or 4 times and things have switched, but you wouldn't even know it as the public because it's hidden from you.
I know, completely.
And it's been tricky for us because we have, all of the information that we're giving is in this private backer form because it's kind of what they bought in for. So we're having to manage giving a ton of information and telling people everything that's happening with then also having this public
It's
story
reinterpreted.
So how many people do you have working on the community side? Sounds like an army of people.
We have me and a community manager, so there's 2 of us.
Just 2 of you?
Yeah.
So do you sleep?
Actually, I do sleep. I'm a good sleeper. But I don't know. I mean, I think that it's just a matter of breaking down barriers and making it really easy to communicate. So at that point, it's not a big deal to kind of jump on. We have the 2-player guys, which help a lot too. So they're putting our documentary together, and we're putting out episode every about month and a half or so. So I think that's kind of the strongest tool for Broken Age. But for other games, we're trying to just let the forums be more open and public, and you know, kind of encourage the studio to jump in there when they can, and just kind of do a little post here, throw up a piece of art, stuff like that. And yeah, I think that it's been a kind of new ground that we're figuring out how to manage, but it's exciting and fun, and you get to, you know, see what people are thinking right away, so it's exciting.
That I think the documentaries have done more to demystify the process of what happens in the production of a video game than most anything, really. I think it's opened a lot of people's eyes to what actually goes on, the struggles, and I find it very interesting because people do, like, it is Christmas, they want it now, but at the same time, they want a real Double Fine written by Tim Schafer game, and that process is very challenging, and you can see the challenge in the documentaries. And I think that for the backers, at least, it means that the process of development is no longer just this magical kind of like immaculate conception of a baby game. It's actually struggles and shit and piss and a lot of sacrifice, and also this crazy elaborate long process where a year and a half really is kind of short.
Yeah.
We saw that even, I mean, you were doing videos on YouTube, like during Curiosity and everything, updating people about what was happening. So, I mean, you've been more exposed to about the good times and the bad times.
Yeah, and it's tempting to either talk about just talk when you've got some interesting news, and not to explain how, it can get very dark when especially when you haven't discovered your game yet. You've been developing it, but you can't play the game. It's incredibly frustrating, and it's great to open the doors and demystify it a little bit. I mean, it's both fascinating and tedious, and it's amazing that you can mix those two words together.
All right, next question comes from @MDanishU, and this question for you, Nathan. What are your thoughts on the Japanese market and how your games have done over there or might do there? Is that something when you think overseas?
Oh, absolutely. We put a massive amount of effort into the Japanese version of Super Brothers Sword and Sorcery EP with the guys from 8.4 who basically just grabbed that and made it their baby and worked really closely with us to create like a full Japanese version of that game, new title, new voice work from Suda51, like basically built an entire game, kind of like changed all the Twitter functionality, added in like a whole kind of hidden Easter egg. Basically, like the 8.4 guys just knocked it out of the park, and it went from being our 30th highest grossing country to our 4th highest grossing country. And it's generated more revenue for us than a lot of countries that you would think would be huge earners. And it's definitely something that I think the concept or the practice of taking games that we make and bringing them to Japan is an extremely challenging and requires a very deft hand. And it sounds like I'm totally blowing smoke up the 8.4 guys' butts, but they've been phenomenal, and we'll work with them on everything that we do to bring them. Because for us, it's actually a very important thing. We spend a lot of time talking about the States and Europe. Those are very key markets. But I think showing independent games in the East is something that we kind of almost have an obligation to do. They have, everybody talks about Cave Story as being kind of like the beginning of independent games in a lot of ways. But I think now there needs to be a lot more of us bringing our games over there, so that idea and that business model and that creative process and the idea that this actually makes sense and works and can work for you. Getting to meet the Tokyo Jungle guys, for example, like they're one of the few tooth and nail indies that I've met and had a chance to spend a bit of time with, and that game kind of is super ultra indie despite the Sony publishing component to it. So yeah, I think for me, I love the idea of having well translated and well localized Western independent games going to Japan, and I also think like there's a heck of a lot of stuff going on there. I think Bit Summit and stuff that the Q Games guys have been doing with that is fantastic, and I think that's going to foster a lot of really amazing things. It's going to really help start building up more of an independent development community there as well. So I think I don't think we're that far away from seeing a rush of some pretty crazy Japanese independent games coming, hopefully through guys like 8.4 to the West and being able to see them.
All right, we'll have to see. I'm sure got us some Broken Age coming to Japan now, right? Peter's thinking.
Definitely. No, we're doing a Japanese version and a Korean version in the new year.
Oh, wow. I lost him. And Broken Age? Other languages?
Right now we're doing
Come on,
eFigs.
3,
right?
two.
No,
We've been agreeing on everything so far, so you gotta agree.
No,
on
what we're working on, so we're doing eFigs as like what we're building, which is English, French, Italian, German, Spanish. And, but we're talking about right now trying to figure out a way to kind of let the community do translations for whatever they want to do and then stick them in.
Stick them in. All right, cool. Well, thanks, guys, for joining us on the bonus round. We will see you next week for an all-new episode right here on Game Trailers.